we have to begin with the very basic, the basic information about the Pathfinder Club. Now, this is so essential. That's because any Pathfinder who join the club, you have to give them what I call orientation. Guide them for the first couple of weeks so they become very acquainted with some of the very basic information of Pathfinder Club to allow them to become well adjusted and become knowledgeable about the Pathfinder Club, all right? So that's very important. Now, let us start off with a very basic definition of the Pathfinder Club. There are a couple of key words in this definition that I came up with, and I want you to remember that. First of all, the Pathfinder Club is an international, uniform youth organization. That already, there are three very important adjectives. It's an international club found all over the world. It is a uniform club. When you have anything that's uniform, you know there's a sense of discipline involved, regimentation, right? Very high degree of discipline. And it's a youth-based club. But of course, our definition of youth is anybody who's young at heart. Even someone who's older can join in, perhaps as an officer, right? And so on. And then the fourth thing you need to know is that it is sponsored by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. This is a uniquely Seventh-day Adventist Church program, all right? It is a uniquely Seventh-day Church program and is owned and copyrighted by the church. So this material can only be used within the context of Seventh-day Adventist churches and of course Adventist schools. Sometimes you do have Pathfinder Club in non-Adventist school, like in Sarawak, Malaysia. I know at one time there were at least 2 schools. I'm not sure whether it is still going on, where we actually have Pathfinder Club in non-Adventist school. That's because we have Adventist teachers who were there, and the school didn't seem to mind, and it was good because it did bring in a few souls to the church. Now, then the Pathfinder Club can be found in almost every country where there's a Seventh-day Adventist presence or where there are Seventh-day Adventist school, and this I can tell you is a fact. I've traveled very extensively around the world, and almost every country I go to, there is a Pathfinder Club. All right, okay. Now, please understand that the word Pathfinder has morphed into many names. So in some country, they do not use the word Pathfinder, all right? So you can see this strange name. I'm not even sure which country they are, right? But I do recognize this. This is Desbravador. This will be used by the Brazilian, all right? This is a Portuguese word. And so the Pathfinder in Brazil will also be using this. And this one is Conquistador. Conquistador is used by any Spanish-speaking club, right? And I think this is probably Russian. This is probably Egypt, and if I remember well, this should be. Let me see. No, no, this is a Swedish flag, right? So, all right. Anyway, just to tell you, the different country uses a different name for it, and in some country, the Pathfinder is considered merged with the scouting movement, especially in Holland, right? Where the Pathfinder is actually merged with the scouting movement over there, right? But we do have our own unique set of badges. Now, right now, actually, this probably is already outdated news. I'm sure this has been increased, but based on the last figure that I know, and I'm sure this has changed, we have nearly or even more than 2 million Pathfinder members around the world, right? And we accept any youth starting from age 10. Pathfinder is from age 10 to age 15, 16, you become a master guide. But as I told you, we accept anyone, even if they're older, later on, they will want them to become officers and so on. As long as this candidate will join, promises to abide with the Pathfinder Pledge law, right, regardless of their race, nationality, culture, or religion. So we do have an open door policy that accept everyone, provided they are willing to subscribe or rather conform. Of course, we don't force religion down their neck. You know, they can perfectly remain whatever religion they want to be. But we do hope that the Christian influence would have brought one to them, but no one should ever be forced to accept somebody's religion. So we do open up our club to non-Christian in our so-called Christian schools, Adventist schools, okay? Now, these are what I call the elementary knowledge that every Pathfinder should learn. Now, some of you think there are only 6 things. No, there are 5 things. No, there are 6 things all Pathfinders should learn. Let us, for example, let them know about the meaning of the Pathfinder triangle. So that would be one very essential knowledge. They should know about the Pathfinder Pledge. I will explain the Pathfinder law, the Pathfinder aim, and the Pathfinder motto, and also they should know about the Pathfinder Song. So these are the 6 basic pieces of information every Pathfinder should be taught, all right, in the first couple of weeks during the Pathfinder orientation, where a counselor will take time to explain to the new Pathfinder what is the meaning of the Pathfinder logo, right? And I will explain that later on, how to say the pledge and the meaning, and the law and the meaning, the Pathfinder aim and the meaning, the Pathfinder motto and the meaning, and of course the Pathfinder song with its meaning as well. All right, now there should be an official form which you should design for any Pathfinder when they join the club, in which you will state out all your policies, right? And that they have to agree to subscribe to the principle when they join the club. And their parents should sign it if they are underage, to get their consent, right? So you can look through this because all this will be provided for you, I believe. So I mean, as part of the so-called you just get it from Greening, okay, the soft copy of it, right? So you should really have a Pathfinder registration form for any Pathfinder to join, so that the records are kept properly. All right, so we do know when they join the club, right, and who are the officers assigned to them, especially the counselors and so on. Now let me talk about the objectives of the Pathfinder Club. Why do we have Pathfinder clubs? There are a couple of very important objectives. I think first I would like to say is to demonstrate the attractiveness of Christian ideals. Many people view Christianity as very boring. It's nothing but a whole bunch of rules and regulations. Can't do this, can't do that. But those who have joined Pathfinder Club now realize that is hardly the truth. Through Pathfindering, they could do so many things: go camping, hiking, and learn so many wonderful things. And we through the Pathfinder Club demonstrate how positive and how attractive those Christian ideals are, of community service, of helping each other, of adventure, of teamwork, and so on. All right, so they will start to see a very different picture of Christianity as a result of Pathfinder Club. So honestly speaking, even if they don't become an Adventist when joining the club, they will be very how should I say that, have a very good feeling about the church because of what the club has done for them. So they will have a very positive impression of the church and of the club as well. So you win goodwill, all right? You win their respect for that matter. Number 2, right? It leads people to Christ. This is what we do hope, but remember, this can never be forced upon anybody. It's mostly through the power of personal influence. If we are good Pathfinder directors, we are good Pathfinder officers, by our godly influence, by our love and example, we will be able to lead people to Christ. And another thing about Pathfinder Club, the Pathfinder activity enable them to stay faithful to the church, to Christ, because there are so many wonderful activities to keep them. By the way, I forgot to mention, you can see Pathfinder uniform is quite different. These are the uniform in Malaysia, which is the light blue uniform. These are the uniform in Jamaica, all right? And now this one is in America. Now the third objective of the Pathfinder Club, guide boys and girls into active missionary service, and if they are not Christian, into community service. We do a lot of this. We serve the community, we serve the church, all right? So we serve as ushers. When there is a funeral, we go and help out, and when there's a wedding, we help as ushers and that kind of stuff. When there's a flood, we go and help. When there's an emergency, we go and render community service, raise funds to help the poor and the old folks and so on, all right? So this is one of the things we do in the Pathfinder Club. Number 4, now this is important, develop good character and citizenship as well as physical fitness. This is so true. A lot of Pathfinder activities is outdoor, and this enables us to have very good physical development. And all right, and because it is a uniform body, and right, and we learn law and order, we learn about the government through good Christian citizenship, right? And because Pathfinder foster discipline and teaches good value, it develops good character, good citizenship, and of course physical fitness. Now here you can see a whole bunch of ladies, and these are the Pathfinders from Mongolia. You can see how disciplined they are, as the way they march, and how incredibly smart their uniform are, right? Very disciplined, right? Now, another objective, teach Pathfinder a variety of practical skills and recreational pursuits. All right, here you learn very important thing like semaphore, right? This is so important in a life and death event, when you need to communicate your distress that you need help, and all you have is a flag, and hopefully someone on the other hill or far, far away who can't hear you has been trained in semaphore or perhaps Morse code or one of the other languages. There are so many, right? And you are able to send as long as a person can see you, they don't have to hear you, and they will be able to know what you have sent to them. So these are very important skills like first aid, uh, rope tying. These are all very practical skills which can save life. Very practical, right? In a time of emergency. And of course, it's recreational. It's a fun thing, especially you go hiking, camping. You employ those skills like fire building, uh, uh, campcraft. You know how to build gadgets, build your own table, and so on. Right. By the way, these are the Pathfinders from the Philippines. All right. Now, then these are Pathfinder from Australia, quite and you can tell Australian uniform because of their broad brim hat. All Australian Pathfinders will wear this. Even the Scouts wear something like this. Okay. Now, the next objective of the Pathfinder Club, which I will elaborate a bit more, is to follow the example of Jesus in terms of holistic growth. When Jesus grew as a boy, the Bible says that in Luke 2:52, and this is what it says, and Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. Now, what it means is that Jesus grew intellectually, that's wisdom, or mentally. He grew in stature, that refers to the physical part. He was healthy, he doesn't drink alcohol, doesn't smoke, and that kind of stuff. He eat healthily and exercise, right? And he was in favor with God. Spiritually, he grew, and he was in favor with men. Socially, he grew. Okay, so this is a very important aspect of pathfinding objective, to help pathfinders be nurtured in these four areas, which I'm going to elaborate. Right, this is what I call the holistic development, right? The spiritual, social, physical, and mental. Enable pathfinders to become disciplined, useful, responsible citizen, not just for this world, but for eternity to come. Now, here is what I call the holistic growth. The spiritual growth, Jesus increased in favor with God. Social growth, Jesus increased in favor with man. Physical growth, Jesus increased in stature. And intellectual growth, and Jesus increased in wisdom, right? Put it in acronym SSPM: spiritual, social, physical, mental. Pathfinder activities has all these four aspects. It contributes to all four aspects. That's why we are much better than the Scouts. The Scouts doesn't have the spiritual component. They have social, physical, mental, right? They are lacking the spiritual. They're lacking in good Christian values and moral values, all right? Now, this is the man who wrote the Pathfinder Song, and he is also the designer of the Pathfinder Flag. Now I'm going to Pathfinder history. Henry Berg uh, wrote this song in 1949, and this was the actual script, a piece of paper that he wrote uh, the song. He was actually tasked. Now, he himself is not a musician, okay? But he was asked when the Pathfinder Club was in the infancy, he was asked by uh, the person, John Hancock, could you come out, the first Pathfinder director, let me see, the second World Pathfinder director, right? Can you write a Pathfinder song, And so while driving back from school, somehow, I mean, from church one Sabbath afternoon, the words came to him, and I'm very sure it was from God, and he wrote that down, and he started to whistle. Now, he didn't know how to put music into those lyrics. With the help of his wife, the notation or put in the musical notation, and that's how we have the Pathfinder song that goes something like this. Oh, we are the Pathfinders strong. Let's sing together. The servants of God are we, faithful as we march
We march
along,
along
in
in
kindness,
mercy
truth, and
and
purity.
purity.
A
A
message
message
to tell to
to
the
the
world.
world.
A
A
truth
truth
that will
that has
set
set us
us free.
free.
King
King
Jesus, our
Jesus, the
Savior, is coming back for you and me. All right. Now, if you notice very carefully, the words of the Pathfinder song is actually derived from the Pathfinder pledge. Did you notice that? right? Because in the Pathfinder Pledge, you will notice it says, I'll be pure, kind, and true. You see, I'll be pure, kind, and true. That's Pathfinder Pledge, right? I will keep and then I'll be a servant of God. And now it's all here. Servant of God, I'll be pure, kind, and true. So, the Pathfinder Pledge is actually found within the Pathfinder Song. All right. And now let us go into the Pathfinder Pledge. Now, please understand, whenever we do the say and recite the Pathfinder Pledge, there is 7 parts to it. Okay. First part, by the grace of God, in everything we do is only because God's grace enables us to do it. And so, what does He enable us to do? Second thing, that we will be pure. Number 3, that we will be kind, and that we will be true. And that again, by God's grace, we are able to keep the Pathfinder law. There are 8 laws that we talk about. And then by the grace of God, we will be able to become His servant. And by the grace of God, we will be a friend to all men. We are colorblind. Everyone in this world is our brother. Every lady in this world is our sister. We are belonging to an international family. Okay, we have no racial discrimination. We are colorblind. We are all God's children. Now, this is the Pathfinder law. And normally, when we recite the Pathfinder law, our hands are raised. Even for the Pathfinder pledge, our hands is raised up this way, all right? And then you raise your right hand, okay? And some people like to put it across their heart. And we will say, as you recite this, there are 2 ways to do it. You all recite together, or you follow the leader. The leader will say the Pathfinder Pledge, and everybody say the Pathfinder Pledge. And then he say, by the grace of God, and all of us follow by the grace of God. So that's following the leader. Or the leader can say, let us do it together, all right? And do the Pathfinder Pledge, and then everybody will do it. Now, that's assuming everybody has already memorized this, okay? Now, the Pathfinder law always begins with this word. The Pathfinder law is for me to 8 things. All right, we always start out by saying the Pathfinder law is for me to, what are the 8 things? Keep the morning watch. We wish to observe morning devotion, spend time with God. The watch here refers to the sentinel. Early in the morning, they are at the fort looking out for enemies, for encroachment. So to keep the morning watch is to look out for the devil, so to speak. And you do that by fortifying yourself with the word of God, okay? Do your honest part. Be a responsible person. You do your share. Care for your body is to be physically fit, to practice good health, right? Not smoke, not drink, do not take alcohol, smoking, drugs, and so on. Keep a level eye is to be, you don't do anything that violates your conscience. You don't do something dishonest, something that you're so guilty that you can't look at somebody eye to eye. So to keep a level eye is to be conscience free. To be courteous is to be polite and to be obedient, all right, especially to your elders and to people in authority. Walk softly in the sanctuary means to be reverent, to be respectful of anything that has to do with God in the church, with the Bible, and in anything that is spiritual on the Sabbath activity and so on. Keep a song in my heart refers to being optimistic, right? That whatever the situation, okay, I will never say die. I will always say try. Why? Because I've God in my heart. With God in my heart, I will always be able to be cheerful, right? And the last one, I will go on God's errand. We will be servants of God wherever God wants us to be. So these are the 8-fold Pathfinder law. There are 7-fold Pathfinder pledge and 8-fold Pathfinder law. And now, the Pathfinder aim has been changed from my time to the present, okay? But during the time when I was a Pathfinder back in 1974, when I first joined, it read, the Advent message to all the world, yeah, in this generation. Now, that was how it was said back then, in this generation. But then some people wonder, couldn't we be more precise? So that's why years later, and I can't remember the exact year, the Pathfinder aim was changed. They dropped the word this and it became my generation. So what it means is this. Our aim in the Pathfinder Club is to proclaim the message of Jesus' second coming. That's what the Advent message is. To all the world, while I'm still alive in my generation, not my children's generation, not my grandchildren's generation or my great-grandchildren, while I'm alive, may I be enjoying in this work to proclaim the message of Jesus coming to the whole world while I'm still alive. That's what it means. And then the motto, the thing that motivates us, that's what motto means. The thing that motivates us, all right? For the love of Christ compels us. Whatever we do is based on 2 Corinthians 5:14. We are constrained, we are compelled, we are driven, motivated by the love of God. So why do I, for example, do this class right now, even though it's a repeat, I have to use 2 hours of my time. Why? Again, it's the love of Christ. I feel bad for those who miss it for whatever reason. So that's the thing. So I think it's the same thing with Brother Graney, why he asked me, would you be willing to do it? I do. I'm okay. I think we are all compelled by the love of Christ. And the reason why you're signing up for this course, it's also because you are driven by the love of Christ to equip you to be an officer so they can serve more effectively and with a sense of authority, all right, with knowledge and power. Now, very important to the understanding of Pathfinder Club is to explain the meaning of our logo. Now, please understand this logo has also gone to undergo a change. When I first joined the Pathfinder Club, it wasn't like this. Back in 1974, right, the sword, as you can see, wasn't this color. The sword, if I remember well at that time, was let me see, it was red. Yeah, no. It was also gold, right? And then there was this word JMV inside, and the letter JMV, that was the one that was blue. So originally there was 4 color. Even now it's still 4 color. But what has changed is that the word JMV, that means Junior Missionary Volunteer, has been dropped. And because the word JMV has been dropped, the color blue has been dropped. So therefore, the General Conference decided now that the blue is essential, because that's one of the important value which I explained. Blue means loyalty. So therefore, they changed the color of the sword to blue. So please remember the original Pathfinder flag, that sword was actually gold. Okay, just to let you know. But because the word JMV, Junior Missionary Volunteer, was dropped, right? So today we only have a blank logo. Now this is for good reason, because as the Pathfinder moved to non-Christian country, some country are very reluctant to allow Pathfinder Club to operate when they know it's a missionary group. So that's why it's better to drop the word JMV. So today it's just known as Pathfinder, and sometimes the word club is written down there. All right, so let me now talk about the 4 colors. There are 4 colors in the Pathfinder triangle. Red represents sacrifice, okay? Yeah, we are willing to sacrifice as the Lord has sacrificed for us. So we remember the sacrifice of Jesus, and we go the second mile for people. We are willing to sacrifice of our resources, of our time, for the sake of others. White is the color of purity, to have a pure conscience, to do what's right in the eyes of God. Gold, in the Olympics, gold is the best. It represents the excellent spirit. Whatever we do it with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind. We are people with an excellent spirit. We do everything with the best ability that we can, the best effort that we can. Blue is the representative for loyalty everywhere. So when you say I'm a blue blooded Singaporean, I'm a blue blooded Tanzanian, that means I'm a very loyal Tanzanian, or I'm a loyal Singaporean, or whatever. I'm a blue blooded Malaysian. It really means I'm a very loyal Malaysian. That's what it means. Blue has always been symbolic of the value of loyalty. So in the 4 colors of the emblem, right, we have sacrifice, purity, excellence, the spirit of excellence, and that of loyalty. Now notice the shield. There is a shield and there is a sword. These 2 are emblems of warfare, of conflict, right? So we recognize the fact that Pathfinder is in a conflict of good and evil, all right, between the forces of God and the forces of Satan. So this shield and the sword already tell us that we are in perpetual conflict with the devil and with evil forces, with bad influences and so on. The shield, however, tells us we are protected by God. God is our shield. Genesis 15 verse 1, right? So the shield tells us that whatever we do, we enjoy the protection of God. Then the sword represents the word of God, right? Bible, Ephesians 6 verse 17. The word of God is represented by the sword. Now then notice something very interesting, that the Pathfinder is 3-sided because it's a triangle, right? Even though we do have this vertical line here, but we always see this as a triangle, all right? Okay, so minus these 2 so-called lateral sides, right? So the 3-sided 1, 2, and 3 represent what we call the tripod of education, all right? Spiritual, mental, and physical. Now, this is what we call the tripod of education, okay? Because this is not a square or rectangle, that's why we couldn't put in the word social, right? But everywhere in the world, when people talk about education, they always think in terms of spiritual, mental, and physical, the tripod of education. Oh, by the way, can I just say something here? If you go to any Asian school, I'm talking about that has got Chinese influence. You go to Seventh-day Adventist school in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Macau. You can go to the Seventh-day Adventist school, the former Seventh-day Adventist school in Vietnam, and the former Adventist school in Kuala Lumpur, all right, and the school in Singapore, which is still going on. All these schools are in Chinese, even though I told you just now, in Vietnam, they still use the word, the Chinese word, and Korea, the same word, samyuk, and in Japan is samikken, which is all from the same Chinese word. Now, that samyuk, or in Singapore, sanyi, or samyuk, really means three values. It's talking about spiritual, mental, and physical. So even within the Asian mindset, they always understand education to be composing of spiritual, mental, and physical. All right, so Asian country influenced by Confucianism, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Singapore, Macau, Taiwan, Japan, Hong Kong, um, Korea, all these have the same name for their schools, all right? Sanyu, Samiken, what else? Samgyup, they all means the same thing, three values. This is what we talk about, the tripod of education. Now, for the Christian, they also represent Trinity, God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, that the Trinity, all right? Now, then the inverted triangle. Now, notice when you are asked to draw a triangle, immediately people always draw a triangle in this way. You notice that, right? This is the traditional concept of a triangle. But guess what? The Pathfinder triangle is actually inverted. You notice carefully, our triangle corresponds with what we call the inverted triangle. That's because it is symbolic of what we call the inverted order of importance. Now, Jesus taught us that the last shall be the first, and the first shall be the last. And this is what I mean by inverted order of importance, right? All right. We believe that others come first, and we are at the bottom. Servant leadership. All true leaders serve the masses, right? Instead of you being the king and everybody listen to you, you being on the apex and everybody supporting you. No, you are the leader. You support all the rest. And this is true servant Christianship, all right? Servant leadership. So that's what it means by the inverted triangle. So that's why we adopted this triangle rather than this triangle. So there is a value, a spiritual value about why our triangle is inverted. Now, very quickly, the Pathfinder Day. Now, there is a module on the Pathfinder Day, so I will just say this very quickly in passing. Pathfinder Day was first celebrated in 1957, and the reason why we celebrate it worldwide is to remember how the Lord has created this club and how the club has indeed blessed us. We use this day to thank God. We use this day to reflect on what good things has happened since the club came into existence. We use this day to recruit people to the club. We use this day to recruit new officers to join the club so as to serve, to recruit manpower. We use this day to collect more offering because usually we collect a second offering that can help us in the club. We use this day to showcase our activity. So sometimes during Pathfinder Day, we have Pathfinder exhibition and so on, right? And on this day, the Pathfinder take over the program. In some churches, they take over both the Sabbath school and the divine service, which is what I recommend. If not, at least take over the Sabbath school, all right? I personally would like Pathfinder to be involved in both Sabbath school and the divine worship. Now, by the way, I should mention, Pathfinder Day is always celebrated traditionally on the third Sabbath of September. It's traditionally celebrated on the third Sabbath of September, all right? Okay, let's now talk about Pathfinder Flag, which I told you was designed by Henry Burke, the same person who wrote the Pathfinder Song. Now, notice that this flag is a rectangle. In the middle is the Pathfinder logo, and there are four quadrants. The four quadrants again represent the holistic approach to development: spiritual, social, physical, mental. So that's the thing. And then in the flag, there are also four colors, right? Here are the four colors. The blue, which is the same as the Pathfinder triangle. Blue represent loyalty. White, you can see white here, represent purity, and red is already in the triangle, represents sacrifice, and gold, we don't say yellow, represent excellence. So the Pathfinder Club flag has got 4 colors, and the 4 quadrants here refers to the 4 areas of developments: spiritual, social, physical, mental. Okay, I hope that you remember that. All right. Now, the Pathfinder classes, there's a complete module on this, so I won't take too long to talk about that. Pathfinder classes are divided into 2 areas. We have the progressive class starting from friend all the way to ranger, to guide, and then you go into the leadership class, master guide, upon 16, and you can only become a master guide if you have been baptized. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 years of progressive class. We call it progressive because you progress from one class to another class, where and then in every class, we also teach Pathfinder honors. These are, oh, by the way, I should say something. The classes takes between 6 months to 1 year to complete, okay? Whereas the honors, usually you can do it within 1 month, right? Or just 2 lessons for that matter. So Pathfinder honors are short courses, whereas the Pathfinder Club classes are just like a regular school where you go through grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. So that's the equivalent of it, all right? Some very important historical facts. The Pathfinder Club started in 1946. So please remember, the club was conceptualized in 1946, but it was only officially recognized by the General Conference, the Adventist Church, the World Church in 1950. That's why we don't use 1946 as the day, as the starting point of our club, even though we do know that the first club was started in 1946. But at that time, it was only America. It has not gone worldwide. But in 1950, when the General Conference recognized this club, then Pathfinder spread to the whole world. That's the reason why we use 1950 as the date of the Pathfinder Club, the birth of the Pathfinder Club. Even though in your mind, you know you should add 4 more years because it actually started in 1946. Now, the first club director was a theology student, who was asked to head the club. He has some knowledge in camping and camp club and so on, I suppose, and that's why he was asked to head the club. And his name was Francis Hunt, right? So I'm not sure whether he went on to become pastor, all right? And that club was in a place called Riverside, California, which is in America, right? Of course, the beginning was in America, but now the club has gone worldwide. And the logo, as I mentioned to you, was designed by, oh, I didn't mention that, did I? Now, this logo is designed by John Hancock, right? John Hancock is the second world Pathfinder director. So the logo designer is John Hancock. You will see his picture afterward, all right? All right. So the logo was designed by John Hancock. Pathfinder Song was composed by Henry Burke in 1949. The flag maker, the flag designer first was also Henry Burke, but the flag maker, the one who stitched up the flag, was a lady called Helen Hobbs, right? So they are not related, by the way, okay? They're just friends. So Helen Hobbs was the one who stitched up the flag, who made the first physical flag. Henry Burke designed the flag as well as composed the song. Now, as I mentioned to you, 2 very important dates. Officially, the Pathfinder was recognized as a part of the church activity in 1950. All right. So even though we started in 1946, and then the Worldwide Pathfinder Day was adopted in 1957 to commemorate the club and to celebrate the achievement of the club and to use that occasion to invite people to join, as well as to recruit more officers. All right. Now, here, as I told you, this is the Pathfinder logo that I used to be wearing back then when I joined the club. The word JMV was there, Junior Missionary Volunteer. As I told you, the flag at that time was, the sword was gold. Now, if you notice very carefully, the sword is blue, you see, right? Those days, the sword was gold. Now, a lot of people don't even know that, right? But because the word JMV was dropped, and we still need the color blue, so therefore the sword became blue, right? So now let me come back to the history of the Pathfinder Club. In 1911, we have what I call a nascent. That means it's still a very rough form of Pathfinder Club, founded in Tacoma Park in Maryland. All right, this is near Washington. All right, but it wasn't called the Pathfinder Club. The activities was very much about Pathfinder Club. And then 3 clubs was formed in that area in 1911. There were the Scout Missions, there were the Woodland Clan and Pals, and the Tacoma Indians. Now, all these have activities similar to the Scouts, from which slowly from there, the idea came, why not we come up with our own Christian Scouts? So that's where, as I told you, the rough idea came from, starting from 1911. Now, let me now come to the history behind the word Pathfinder. The word Pathfinder actually did not even come from the Seventh Adventist Church. The word Pathfinder came as a result of a man who is a very famous pioneer in America. Now, let me tell you the story behind how this word Pathfinder came about and became our club name. During a youth camp in 1928, one of our youth leader by the name of Arthur Spalding. Now, he's a very famous Adventist youth leader, right, in California. Now, this was a youth camp. Now, this is not Pathfinder camp, all right, 1928. But there were a lot of activities. There was like scouts and, camping, fire building, that kind of stuff, rope tying. Now, it was very traditional during the campfire that there would be storytelling. And Arthur Spalding told them about the story of one of the greatest explorer and early pioneer of America who went around the unknown America back then. And his name was John Fremont. And this guy is John Fremont, who was an ex-soldier. And after the war, he went around exploring one corner of America to another. So much so, during his lifetime, he was known as Mr. Pathfinder. Why? Because he was finding so many new paths. So the word Mr. Pathfinder came from John Fremont, who was nicknamed Mr. Pathfinder because he found many new paths, right? Now, because Arthur Spalding told about the story about Mr. Pathfinder, oh, that name caught on, and soon the youth camp will call Pathfinder Camp, right? It all started from this camp in 1928, where the word Mr. Pathfinder was used, and people liked the word. And from that time, the youth camp will call Pathfinder Camp. Now, it still wasn't Pathfinder Club yet, okay? But that's where the word Pathfinder first came about. And later on, this same name was used, all right, for the club used by John McKean. Now, this is another club, right? So the first club that actually used that word Pathfinder was by the club director, John McKean, all right? And I happened to meet his daughter and his granddaughter in 1999 during the Oshkosh Campus. So I've actually met the descendants of John McKean, right? So this is the story. We get our word Pathfinder from this explorer who was actually a soldier, right? Okay. Now, staffing of the Pathfinder Club. The Pathfinder staff officers is staffed. The club is staffed by volunteers. None of us are paid. None of us are paid. And it's led, L-E-A-D. There's a typo here, right? And it's led by the club director. Okay. So in the Pathfinder Club, we have a club director, right? And he or she is assisted by one or more deputy directors. Sometimes we have even up to 4 deputy. If you have a very, very big club, 1 deputy for boys, 1 for girls, 1 for class activity, 1 for outdoor activity, that kind of stuff, So depending how big and organized your club is. And then there's a team of counselor. A counselor is in charge of a unit. A Pathfinder Club is divided into units. So one unit is usually between 4 to 8 members, normally never more than 8 members. And so the so-called sub-director of the club is called the counselors. So let me say again, so you have the director, and he has his deputies to help him. And then he has a whole bunch of counselors, 1 counselor for each unit, all right? Who will be, and of course, then there is also club instructors who can help out in the teaching of Pathfinder progressive classes from friend to guide, and in teaching the Pathfinder honors. And of course, I recommend this. Every club should have a club chaplain or a pastor to assist in spiritual matter. Most of the time, we ask the church pastor to serve as the chaplain. All right, we are coming towards the end soon for this first module. Sources of income. Pathfinder Club is funded through a couple of things. Number 1, club dues or membership fees. Now, every club member should pay a club fee. This club fee has to be determined by the officers in consultation with the members, because really, if it's too overpriced, club members cannot join. They can't afford it. So I always like to advise everybody, please be very considerate when you set and decide how much the club fees is, the so-called club dues. It must be affordable by Pathfinders so they can join, okay? Now, club dues alone will not be enough to fund the club. That's the reason why the church funds it. The church have to buy the tents, and we give an appropriation from our church budget, combined budget. We give about 1 or 2%. Now, when I was a pastor in Malaysia, we gave up to 3% every month of our combined offering to the Pathfinder Club. So our club was quite rich, man. We have very good tents, good facility, because we have 3% every month of the total combined budget. Now, in a church-based school, or even a mission Adventist, a mission school run by Adventist church, sometimes we collect what we call extra curriculum activity, ECA, extra curriculum activity fees, right? And this fee actually help to fund the club. So that's why anybody who join the club, who join the school, is automatically a Pathfinder, and he has already paid for his so-called membership fee. Why? Because this was part of the school fees, the ECA fee. This is an additional to the school fee, right? So this have to pay for the uniform, for their camping, their honors, and all the other things. Now, another source of income is through Pathfinder Day offering. Now, there was a time where the entire offering on Pathfinder Day goes to the club. Now, a lot of people complain. They say, oh, we can't afford that. So therefore, there are two things you can do on Pathfinder Day. A bigger portion of that combined budget offering goes to the club on that day, or my recommendation is to have a second offering. So we have the regular combined church offering, and then we make an appeal after a very good Pathfinder program for a second offering. So that's called the Pathfinder Day designated offering. Okay, and you make special offering envelopes for that, for people who put in there. So this go directly to Pathfinder Club. Now, another thing I recommend is sponsorship by church members. Some very wealthy doctors or lawyers or businessmen who are quite wealthy, and you approach them and say, can you please sponsor 2 Pathfinder for this year? When you say sponsor, this person take care of his uniform, or his club fees, and his camping, his excursion, and all whatever fees that expenses is involved. And I have done that when I was a church pastor. I've got a good doctor who sponsored 5 people to the club, right? And you know what? All 5 were baptized. So it was a very good investment, because the Pathfinder Club got them into the church, and they were so excited, and they learned about Jesus, and all 5 were baptized. So I think that was one of the best things that doctor did. He sponsored the 5 poor visitors who were not from well-off family to join the club, and they later all became members of our church. One actually became a pastor, just to let you know. Now, then we also do fundraising. Now, I've done that a lot. Sometimes we ask the Pathfinder to do car wash for the community. So we put a big sign outside the church, right? Community car wash, okay, for fundraising. A lot of people will be willing, right? They know you don't do a professional job, but they don't mind, right? Just to wash the dirt. And then we have what we call job week. Now, this is something I recommend. You write letters to the community or to your church member, especially with a big church, and say, from this day to this day, we have what we call job week. Now, this is usually during school vacation. And so job week means, right, during this whole week, if you need any errands to be done, like cutting the mowing the lawn, cleaning the backyard, or doing some shopping errand, if you want us to do some job for you, we will be willing to come over, and it's up to you to donate whatever you feel is worth for the job done. So that's called job week. Now, do you know, at one time when I was a junior club director in Singapore, we raised $200 just from job week, and we donated it to the Blind Association. Now, this was back in 1976, and 200 Singapore dollars was a lot of money back in 1976. And my group of only about 12 to 15 Pathfinder were able to raise $200 in the span of 1 week to raise that money for the poor. You know, that was an incredible thing. Now, one of the best way to raise money is food fair. Now, I have done a couple of food fair. We call it especially international food fair. If your church has got different international communities, so you have food from Africa, you have food from Asia, you have food from different parts of the world. It will be nice, you know, Tanzanian food, African, what do you call it, Filipino food. You have Japanese food, you know, on the food fair, and people will come, and you sell tickets, and you can raise a lot of money through food fair. All right, so these are all the different ways to raise fund for your club. So in the end, you will have money for your tents, for all the equipment, and even perhaps even for the uniform in some cases. All right, now let's talk about the world leadership. The World Pathfinder Director right now, I have not had the pleasure of meeting him, is Pastor Andres Peralta. He's actually from the Dominican Republic. Now, his country, I've been there before, right? And he was appointed in 2017 at the General Conference, okay? And he replaced Jonathan Tehel. He is the 8th World Director, all right? And he now lives in America with his wife, okay? So he is number 8. Now, these are the 7 that preceded him. Lawrence Skinner was the first one, and he is a Canadian, right? Second one was John Hancock. Now, remember, I told you he's the one who designed the Pathfinder logo. He's very influential and part of Pathfinder history, just to let you know. The third person was a Brazilian, Leo Renzolin, all right, who now lives in America. He's a Brazilian. He's the 3rd World Director. The 4th one, I had the privilege of meeting him. Now, I have met from the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, right? But the first 2, I didn't have the joy of meeting. I met Leo Renzolin and I met Michael Stevenson, who unfortunately has died of cancer. So he's the only one that did not, was unfortunate. Now he's from South Africa, all right, and he served only for 1 term plus because unfortunately he had cancer. Very nice man. I met him in Thailand during the 1st Division Pathfinder Camporee, the Far Eastern Division Camporee. Now I also met this Malcolm Allen who replaced him. Now he is Australian. Now he has been to our Camporee in Sabah, right? Our Union Camporee. Very nice man, Pastor Malcolm Allen. Now my best friend is actually Robert Holbrook. Now that's the man I respect a lot. Very good man. I have a lot of good story to tell about this man. I've been with him in many camps around the world. Robert Holbrook was a very well-loved club director, World Pathfinder Director, and he was replaced by this man from Spain, Jonathan Tehel. Right, so we have a Canadian, American, Brazilian, South African, and then Australian, and then American again, and then we have a Spanish, and now a Spaniard, and now we have a Dominican Republican, all right, who is heading the World Pathfinder Club.